Do you like changing light bulbs? I personally don't. And it's not because that the light bulbs are so expensive or hard to find. It's because driving to the shop, getting them and then replacing them takes time and can be quite unpleasant to do it too very often. So I was hoping that LED light bulbs would solve it pretty much, because LEDs have a potential to last a very long time. But I was disappointed when light bulbs started going out one after another about several months after I put them in. So I decided why not to try and to gather the potential and make them last longer. So the first step is to open the LED bulb, and here we see the components inside. We see the LEDs and the power supply in the base of the light bulb, and here are the outputs of the power supply, and those are the LEDs. Their power is regulated by the IC mounted on the top, which is governed by a small black resistor that by its value determines the current that will pass through the light bulbs. Changing and altering this resistor value will affect directly the power amount. So what happens is that the LEDs are pretty much driven to their maximum, or sometimes even over its maximum, and the high heat they generate dramatically shortens their lifespan. So let's see how this light bulb performs as it was built. So let's plug in it to the mains and switch it on. So I don't know if the camera will pass their intensity okay, but you can see here that it's, you know, pretty intense now. Okay, and I can see that it's already starting to get hot. It's not yet crazy hot, but it's definitely gaining some heat. Okay, so let's take it apart and open the light bulb. Okay, we would definitely use some glue to stick it back in. So this resistor governs the total power output of the light bulb. It regulates the current that will pass through all these LEDs within the light bulb. So what we'll do, we'll change it and we will replace it with a different resistor. The lower the resistor is, the higher the current will pass it, and the higher the resistor will be, the lower current will pass. So I actually found that the easiest way to remove it is actually physically removing it and not desoldering it, because desoldering from aluminium backplate can be a bit challenging with SMD components. So in this type of bulb, it just removes by applying some brutal force to it. So now we can measure the resistance of this resistor. I actually looked at the number printed on it, and it is a 19 ohm resistor. Now I can't measure it because it kind of chipped away one of the connectors. So it's always a good idea to look at the number instead. And if you don't know how to decode this number as I did, I just looked it up in Google. Okay, so now let's replace it with another resistor. This resistor is twice the resistor, so the current will be much lower, and thus the output of the bulb will be much lower, and it will generate less heat, but during to the smaller heat within the bulb, it will last significantly longer time. Okay, so in order to solder in the resistor, we need to bend it and solder it in. So I will just use something to fix the bulb in place. And this is, well, not a traditional way to use the soldering holder. I will just kind of wrap the bulb around so both I can solder it pretty steadily, and you also would be able to see what's actually going on there. And by the way, it's good to notice that this is an informative and educational video, so and you should pretty know what you are doing there, because it's electrical equipment which is connected to the mains, and definitely if you will shorten out something there, it it might have some very negative consequences, so do it on your own risk. I'm not encouraging you to do it. So now I'm preparing the connectors, putting some extra solder on them, so I would be able to easily solder in the resistor. By the way, those resistors, I have ordered them from eBay. They just cost me something like $2 for a pack of 100. And I will bend the pins of the resistor so that it will fit perfectly to the connection plates on the PCB. And now this is the proper distance, and I will create a little bend below, and now I'm trimming the pins so they are at the correct lengths. Okay, so now let's solder it back in, and the resistor will get pretty hot, so you should definitely use something to hold it in place while you are soldering it. And it's definitely critical to get the right value of the resistor, because a lower value will just immediately break the bulb, and a higher value will make it very dim, to a point it will produce very little light. Maybe it's a good idea to experiment with some resistors which are way out of the value scope, and see what happens. Let me know in the comments if you think it's a good idea. So now I'm just soldering it into the pads, putting some solder on the pins and sticking it back there. Okay, doing my best to hold it in place. And definitely if I was doing it at a greater scale, I would find some better solution. And if you have any ideas of how this can be done, maybe you write it in the comments below. Okay, so here we go. One pin is done. Next, let's solder another one. Definitely should find a position that the pins does not touch any other pins there, and always remember that mains are going to be flowing through this circuit, so make all connections very, very solid. Okay, just put in some extra solder there. And we are almost ready to try it out. Let's bend it a little so it's out of the way and doesn't affect the light. And let's screw it back to the socket and light it up. Put in the cap. Definitely some thermal glue will be useful here. For now it's just kind of firm in place. And let's screw it to the socket. And plug the mains in. Okay, so compared to the last time we light it up, you probably see it's, although the camera doesn't capture it too well, it's definitely dimmer. And now let's feel the heat. So it's kind of a little bit warmish, but it does not get anywhere near as hot. And I have actually left it for a very long time and it's barely got warm. So it has been a while and it's